Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and welcome to another episode of Newsround for Anfield Index. It is Thursday, the 11th of September. Praise be to baby Jesus and the orphans. The absolutely pish international break is done. Liverpool are playing this weekend. Proper football is back, people. That's what we're all about, isn't it? Sunday for us, Burnley away, 2 o'clock. Everything ticks down to that, including things back into the normal routine. For instance, Arne Slot will deliver his press conference at 9 a.m. on Friday. Proper football is back. I'm your host, Dave Davis, coming to you from pretty sunny and nice Edinburgh. Touch wood, it stays this way. Fingers crossed it is nice wherever you are in the world. But let's be completely honest. It's not really that you care about. It's everything Liverpool related. So let's get into it. And we start where we always start on the official stuff. And the big, handsome bastard himself was there yesterday, wasn't he? I'm sure you've watched the videos. I would love to play you the videos, but we get shut down, copyrighted, which is so annoying because we promote it to high hell if they'd let us. But the videos of Alexander Isak training. Alexander Isak training for Liverpool. Alexander Isak training for Liverpool in a Liverpool kit, sticking it in all parts of the goals. Unreal. Just looked brilliant, didn't he? And I know people are going to say it's training. Not everyone was there. It was the kids, people on international break, yada, yada, yada. But bet you've all watched the video. Bet you have. Doesn't he just suit that Liverpool kit? And now we're all in this mood of just how long can he play against Burnley? Because he got about 20 minutes or so for Sweden, didn't he, against Kosovo? The mind boggles. The mind is excited. But we'll see him with, probably, if they release any footage, his more senior counterparts today. Also joining him, which was absolutely brilliant, Jeremy Frimpong was back in training as well, wasn't he? We know he obviously got that hamstring on the first game of the season against Bournemouth. Arne Slot had said he hopes he will be back after the international break. Looking good. Seems to be back in training, doing all the exercises from the footage, the full contact training as well. So you expect and hope he'll be in the squad for Burnley at the same time as well. And good to see Gomez on the pitch as ever. So if you thought the bench was a little bit light recently, now add Isak to it, now add Frimpong to it. Looks a bit tastier as well. Connor Bradley, he obviously played the 2 games. He's been injured recently for Northern Ireland. Touch wood, and I'm saying this, I am touching the wood on my desk. The international break may, touch wood, have been kind to Liverpool there. Just positives all round. And I tell you who else they were joined by. Big Fede. Federico Chiesa was also in training, wasn't he? And there's little bits that just come out more and more on Fede. And it's brilliant that I was told the clubs he just turned down. As it's there that Gazzetta Italia had it, he rejected loan moves to Napoli and Inter, and instead stayed put at Liverpool because he's more inclined to compete with top players at Anfield. Very determined to prove himself to Arne Slot. And Gattuso had even talked about it, when he discussed the call-up, how much that Chiesa had said he wanted to really work at Anfield during this break as well. Lewis Steele had said he turned down AC Milan. As the reports have come out from various journalists, Besiktas were told no. Atalanta as well didn't have. I mean, that's 5 clubs Chiesa has rejected this summer. I mean, at the start of the summer, we never even predicted for 1 single second he would remain at Anfield. But here he is, training, another option off the bench as well. Again, touch wood as I'm saying it, but the international break looks like it's been kind. The only sort of wrinkle you could argue was Ibu news a little bit that, when he made the comment, didn't he? Madrid and Mbappe, ringing me every 2 hours, type of thing, which wasn't really what we wanted to hear, but probably is the truth. There's a lot being spoken about Ibu at the moment, isn't he? Because, of course, he's in the final years. And probably interesting was Mario Kutanga, I'm probably pronouncing that not wrong, but the Real Madrid correspondent for The Athletic was asked about Ibu specifically, and there's a bit that he gave. He said, Liverpool's brand centre-back is admired behind the scenes at Madrid. He is one of Europe's elite defenders, and his contract ends next summer. That's a good reminder, people. Konate is one of Liverpool's elite defenders, one of Europe's elite defenders. No one is Virgil van Dijk, but I'm seeing the stick in the different comments, which is ridiculous at the moment. But what else did he say here? He said, I don't believe he's a real option in this summer window, with all due respect to other reports' information. Madrid believe Konate would like to play for them, but we don't know how hard Liverpool are pushing for an extension. Konate could be playing both sides in negotiations until he chooses the option that suits him best. Yeah, been doing a bit of digging on this in the international scene, and David Lynch had spoken about it, and he spoke to another podcast, I'll pick him up on that on Monday, don't get me wrong, about it, and said that it's still open, nothing's decided with Ibu at the moment. Info is pretty much that Liverpool, Richard Hughes, still believe there is a real chance, hence why they're talking to him, hence why they're trying to do a deal. It's just about, can they come to agreeable terms? The big problem being, the two big problems we've got being that Real Madrid, of course, are in his ear, Kylian Mbappe, and on a free, they will give him fortunes. That's the big problem, isn't it? And another club, which isn't getting mentioned, but again, doing digging and going back to this summer, we are getting told PSG are also in the mix as well. So there are two clubs prepared to pay fortunes to Ibu, which is obviously making it difficult because I get it. We need to be clear. He's well within his rights to invite tenders. I mean, officially, from the 1st of January, he can assign, can't he, a pre-contract agreement with an overseas club. That's his right. You can't argue with that at all. So he's seeing what's there. And I'm honestly, there's stuff about the chat panel who should have got Gabe. And I'm like, no, as people are aware, and as he proved against Arsenal, Ibu is a top defender. If we can sign him, we need to. We're not going to push out the boat too far, though, I think, are we? I think that's becoming clear. Do I still expect him to end up at Real Madrid? Yes. But that's the key info that we're getting. Liverpool are still trying to do a deal. Whether they can, that's a completely different story. But yeah, this will probably bubble on. And you'll have your debates about whether that can have an impact on the season. But that is maybe one for another day. James Pearce wrote about Harvey Elliott, who, of course, is now... Well, he is a Liverpool player, but he's at Aston Villa on loan. They've got the obligation for 35 million. We've got the two clauses in there, haven't we, as well? The sell-on and the buyback for the future. But this was the weirdest bit of information that was in this article, if anyone clocked it yesterday. Red Bull Leipzig. Look at that for a line. Those clubs who considered signing him but opted against it will be kicking themselves. Leipzig's interest was well documented, but strangely, they weren't prepared to pay more than 20 million euros, as in 17.3 million quid if you exchange them at Tesco. I mean, which leg were Leipzig hoping to get for that? And you saw that David Ornstein, Paul Joyce, various others had reported Red Bull Leipzig. It just feels a very weird amount, especially because Leipzig sold Xavi Simons. They got the big fee as well for Benjamin Sesko. So everyone knows they weren't short of a pretty penny. I'm not trying to say this is a wrong article at all, because it's not my information. I'm just reporting what's there. But it does seem a bit strange to believe, doesn't it, as an amount, that Red Bull would even think that 20 million euros would even get them to the table. Do you know, we just get those kind of really stories in the transfer window. I think it's one of those for me. Not that it matters. Harvey Elliott is now an Aston Villa player. In terms of players that are not ours as well, Mark Guehi. I mean, we know that one sort of collapsed, didn't we? Right at the last minute, it went to a deal sheet. Liverpool like Mark Guehi for a number of factors. Homegrown, Premier League experience, captain of Crystal Palace, so that leadership option, and the price played a part. Obviously, 35 million plus the 10% sell-on was the agreement, wasn't it, that they reached with Palace. So all that in the mix, all the ticks in the boxes, led it to being defined as quote-unquote a market opportunity for Liverpool. And since then, there's been quite a lot of reporting, hasn't there, a mix that Liverpool are not going to go back, as Paul Joyce and others have said, in January. There is no guarantee. There's quite a few journalists reported, Lewis Steele, David Lynch, that they will go back at the end of the season. I think they will, because Guehi is a brilliant third option. He's not better than Konate, so anyone with that nonsense, stop straight away. But he's a brilliant third option. The reason I'm saying about this as well and phrasing it that way is actually, again, during this international break, from doing some digging, Guehi certainly wasn't top of the list in terms of a profile and just as a player. However, when you start stacking availability, age, as in are they available, I should say, experience, all those types of things, that's where he comes out top. But it's really important to say, though, our information was that as a straight-up defender with certain attributes and skills, Mark Guehi was absolutely not coming out at the top. It was just the combination. And actually, from doing some digging, there was other defenders in certain areas who were well ahead of him. And one that starts that Liverpool asked about this summer, Jan-Paul van Hecke, centre-back, Dutch. A lot of our boys are Dutch as well, aren't they? Will have a year left to go in the summer. Made it clear he is not signing a new deal with Brighton. I wouldn't rule this one out again for the summer. And why? The aerials in the 74th percentile, although not the best so far this season, but he is a big unit. It's this that you can't ignore why Liverpool had a real look and may well look again. Progressive passes over 6.5 in the game, the 96th percentile. Progressive carries, 95th percentile. If you look at him overlaid there against Mark Guehi, it's never that simple, but he's ahead in passes attempted, pass completion, progressive passes, progressive carries, as in Van Hecke, who's played under De Zerbi and that murder ball from the back scenario, and Brighton progresses the ball, which Liverpool are wanting, aren't they? Year left to go in the summer as well. So from our info, as a straight player, Van Hecke had things ahead of Guehi. The young beast, as I'll call him, Jeremy Jacquet, who a lot of people are watching at the moment, aren't they? French at Rennes, youngster. Again, the info we got with this, Liverpool had a real look and were discussing with Rennes and with Jacquet. However, it's a big gamble to sign two super talented youngsters in the window. As in Liverpool were never going to sign Leone and Jacquet at the same time. Hence, and others looked, Villa looked as well as we know, but he is still at Rennes right now. But I called him the young beast. 94th percentile for tackles, 99th percentile for interceptions compared to his counterparts. But look at this aerial duel success. Yes, there's not too much data. 100% this season, 65.5. Even over those 3 years that they've got the sample size here on FBref, 68.9. It's going up each year, as you can see. Yes, small sample size, we'll get into that. But a young beast. And actually, when he is overlaid against Mark Guehi, and I'm not going to pretend I watch Rennes. That would just be a lie. I know people are going to say, oh, he's this. I have no idea. But doing a bit of digging and speaking to people who we know at Anfield Index that do watch Ligue 1, defends space very well. A Frenchman who's good in the air, good at tackles, interceptions, and defends space well. Who does that sound like? Would Liverpool go for another younger player this summer? Who knows? But one to keep an eye on. Now, as I bring Nico Schlotterbeck onto the screen, you're all going to say injuries. You're going to say Dortmund, happy there and all those type of things. Yes, it is a sea of green. Yes, he is still injured, so hasn't been playing. So that will come into the mix. But he will only have a year left to go in the summer. And Liverpool had a real look at Schlotterbeck. We had a real look at him on Transfer Market Metrics, me and Bart. And you can see in the overlay, he is better than Mark Guehi at so many things. You're thinking, why are we mentioning this guy? The only info we got with this guy is that Liverpool had a real look at Schlotterbeck before Virgil renewed, because he is left-footed and he does play as the left-footed centre-back. So this one feels unlikely for that reason. But Liverpool had a proper look at him. With a year left to go, he did profile better than Mark Guehi again. But when you stack it all in those elements. Now, the final one, and someone is going to say, Bastoni, it's going to be Bastoni. Our info on this is that Liverpool, of course, as many other clubs, have sounded out Bastoni. Bastoni has no interest of leaving Italy, is our info. Hence why, happy, settled at Inter Milan. I don't see him leaving. Things can change, of course. World Cup afterwards, something might be different. But that's the info. It's not Bastoni. It's the one who's worth 87 at Scrabble. Kouliarakis, I think it's pronounced. Again, youngster, left-footed. We profiled him on TMN. A lot to like, a lot of potential, and definitely better in terms of Guehi and passes attempted, progressive carries, touches, aerials, clearances, a lot of the defensive metrics. Again, probably the thing that might count against him, as we said, youngster. You're never quite sure how it would work and who they go for. But we just want to be crystal clear on what we got told at Anfield Index on this, that, yes, Mark Guehi was a market opportunity because of all those boxes, as in price, Premier League experience, homegrown, leadership. That makes it a market opportunity. But he wasn't, and he's defined that way because he wasn't the ultimate number one target, because there were defenders that profiled better than him, as in progressive players like Van Hecker, young beasts like Jeremy Jacquet, more experienced players in essence of a higher level like Nico Schlotterbeck. But with VVD renewing, might well kill that. Kouliarakis as well. Certain elements where we did profile higher than Guehi. Thinking, why are you making this point? I would not be surprised if Mark Guehi still ends up as Liverpool player on a free. I'd still expect that personally. But I said it at the start, possibly as a third choice. Okay, you've got to put that into the mix. Yeah. Eventually, there is going to have to be a VVD, and more likely in the summer, a Konate replacement. You can easily say, oh, it's Leone, but then you've got Joe Gomez questions as well. Don't be surprised if a couple of these centre-halves end up at Liverpool. We will have to see. And the final bit, because Michael Olise, Lewis Steele, buying space, this talk keeps coming round and round again. Obviously, nothing's going to happen until the summer. We're going to find out probably if there is a release clause or there isn't. But again, doing a bit of digging on this into the international break and speaking to the few people that we can in Germany around this, Bayern may well be looking for a sale in the summer, and actually, ideally, to fund the training ground they want and other plans, etc. Info is that they would actually like to sell Harry Kane because of his age, and all that. It would be a final bit of money there for them rather than Michael Olise. And I don't need to get into Bayern's assets. This is not Bayern Index, is it, in that regard? But again, this is going to keep coming round. And if he has a Magic World Cup, yeah, I suspect we're going to see some development with Michael Olise this summer. The only other thing that keeps coming up, because we're all naming these players and thinking we're going again next summer, aren't we? Like Guehi will come, Wharton, Elise, all these things that get us excited. The same line that we got from a number of sources on this is who's the potted cow for this? As in, Liverpool make great sales, and that for the big summer again, that people seem to be talking around and building this dynasty, which, don't get me wrong, it gets me excited at the same time. Who's the asset you're cashing in on this time? Because there was obvious ones, wasn't there? Like Diaz, Nunes, etc. Who is it this time? That's the big line coming back to us, that if we are going to go again, shall we say, and have a window like we did, Gakpo, ? Alisson, McAllister for what? Not I'm wanting any of these to happen, but before we start thinking it's just going to be a massive window again, as keeps coming back to us, there would have to be sales to facilitate it. Now, Liverpool will obviously have money and, they'll be in the Champions League, etc., of course. But for it to be anything like this summer, it's just important to keep that in mind. There might need to be sales, sacrifices, however you wish to put it. Christ, the window doesn't open till January. Probably the only mention on that. Many are expecting that to be extremely quiet for Liverpool. That's the word we're getting, just to disappoint early doors, you could say. But yeah, so much business done in the summer. Who's really expect anything in January? Mark Guehi's been kind of shot down already, hasn't it? Things can change, but yeah, I wouldn't be expecting too busy a January. More importantly, people, far, far more importantly, Liverpool have got a game on Sunday. I know you'll have watched it. I'll watch it again. The footage of Alexander Isak. Hopefully, we get more photos and footage around everything that's been going on today. When we see the training, when we see Salah knocking it into Isak, Verts feeding him through. You know what images we want. Proper Pornhub stuff. We'll see if we get it. But on Thursday, the 11th of September, that was another news round for Anfield Index.